If you love The Legend of Zelda, there are plenty of hidden gems that capture its magic of exploration, dungeon puzzles, boss battles, and ability-driven progression. Beyond the big names, these underrated adventures deliver interconnected worlds, clever mechanics, and that satisfying feeling of uncovering secrets and unlocking new paths. Here are 18 hidden Zelda-like games you absolutely need to play. Let's get started. Let's talk about games like The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda are typically action-adventure experiences that blend real-time combat, environmental puzzle solving, exploration, and progression through interconnected overworlds and dungeons into a cohesive, heroic journey. At their core, Zelda-like games focus on guiding a lone hero through a vibrant fantasy world filled with secrets, monsters, ancient ruins, and mysterious artifacts, gradually unlocking new tools or abilities that open previously inaccessible paths in true Metroidvania-light fashion. Exploration is central. Players wander forests, deserts, mountains, and towns, discovering hidden caves, optional treasures, and side quests that flesh out the world. Dungeons serve as the structural backbone, each built around a unique mechanic or item, such as bombs, grappling tools, magical rods, or time manipulation, that recontextualizes both combat and puzzles, culminating in a climactic boss fight that tests mastery of that dungeon's core idea. Combat is usually skill-based but readable, combining swordplay, ranged attacks, magic, dodging, and pattern recognition rather than pure stat grinding. Narrative in Zelda-inspired games tends to be mythic and adventurous rather than overly complex, centering on themes of destiny, courage, balance, and the struggle against a powerful dark force threatening the land. The Knightling is a top-down action-adventure that channels the spirit of classic heroic journeys by placing players in the boots of a young squire whose legendary knight mentor mysteriously vanishes, forcing the inexperienced apprentice to rise to the challenge and defend a kingdom on the brink of chaos. Strongly inspired by the structure and design philosophy of early entries in The Legend of Zelda, the game revolves around freeform exploration, tightly designed dungeons, environmental puzzles, and skill-based real-time combat that emphasizes timing, positioning, and smart use of tools over raw statistics. The world is constructed as an interconnected fantasy realm filled with forests, ancient ruins, fortified castles, hidden caverns, and secret pathways that gradually become accessible as new abilities and gear are obtained, creating that satisfying loop of discovery and progression that defines Zelda-like experiences. Each dungeon introduces a distinct mechanical concept, whether it involves manipulating environmental elements, mastering a newly acquired item, or solving layered puzzle sequences that culminates in a boss encounter designed to test the player's understanding of that dungeon's core idea. Combat encounters mix light swordplay, defensive maneuvers, and situational abilities, encouraging observation of enemy patterns and creative problem-solving rather than mindless button mashing. Baldo, The Guardian Owls is a fantasy action-adventure RPG that blends classic Zelda-style exploration and dungeon design with strong anime and Studio Ghibli-inspired visuals, following a young boy named Baldo, who becomes entangled in an ancient prophecy involving magical owls and a rising darkness. Set in a beautifully illustrated world filled with rolling plains, mystical ruins, bustling towns, and hidden labyrinths, the game emphasizes free exploration, environmental puzzle solving, and real-time combat, closely echoing the structure popularized by early entries in The Legend of Zelda. As Baldo journeys across the kingdom, players uncover cryptic lore, interact with eccentric NPCs, and accept side quests that deepen the world's mythology, while gradually unlocking new abilities and tools that allow access to previously unreachable areas. Dungeons play a central role in progression, each designed around layered puzzles involving switches, elemental mechanics, block manipulation, and enemy clearing challenges. culminating in boss encounters that require pattern recognition and strategic positioning rather than simple stat advantage. Combat combines melee attacks, magical abilities, and item usage, demanding careful resource management and thoughtful movement, especially against stronger foes. The story unfolds through prophecy and mystery, centering on themes of fate, ancient guardianship, and the struggle to prevent a sealed evil from returning.
Army must transform themselves into a fearless monster hunter and shift the tides in a battle of the gods.
I will bring you back.
Immortals: Fenyx Rising is an open-world action-adventure inspired heavily by the exploration-driven structure of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, placing players in the role of Fenyx, a customizable mortal warrior who must rescue the Greek gods and save the Golden Isle from the monstrous Titan Typhon. Set in a vibrant mythological landscape, divided into regions themed around different Olympian gods, the game emphasizes free-form exploration, environmental traversal, and physics-based puzzle solving, allowing players to climb nearly any surface, glide across vast distances, and uncover hidden vaults, secrets, and optional challenges scattered throughout the world. Central to progression are the Vaults of Tartaros, self-contained dungeon-like puzzle chambers that test logic, timing, combat skill, and mastery of godly powers such as telekinesis, strength-enhancing abilities, and aerial maneuvers. Combat is fast-paced and ability-driven, blending light and heavy attacks, dodges, parries, ranged bow combat, and powerful divine skills that can be upgraded through collected resources, encouraging strategic combinations rather than simple button mashing. The narrative unfolds with a humorous, self-aware tone narrated by the gods Zeus and Prometheus, reimagining Greek mythology with playful banter while still framing the adventure as an epic struggle against chaos.
Phosphorus, with his dedicated attack to get out of sticky situations.
Me and Phosphorus.
Wide array of puzzles and challenges on the island, where you must use brains and brawn.
Dawn of new riders! Hiccup's dragon sanctuary is in ruins. Its dragons captured by evil forces.
DreamWorks Dragons: Dawn of New Riders is a top-down action-adventure set in the world of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, following a young scholar named Scribbler who washes ashore on a mysterious island with no memory of his past, accompanied by a rare hybrid dragon called Patch. Structured in the spirit of classic entries in The Legend of Zelda, the game revolves around exploration, puzzle-focused dungeon design, light RPG progression, and real-time combat, all framed within the familiar Viking and dragon setting. As Scribbler and Patch journey across varied environments including forests, icy caverns, volcanic regions, and dragon-infested strongholds, players switch between rider and dragon to solve environmental puzzles that require combining elemental dragon abilities, such as fire, electricity, and ice, with switch activation, obstacle clearing, and enemy encounters. Dungeons serve as the core progression gates, each built around clever use of Patch's powers to manipulate the environment and overcome barriers before culminating in boss battles against powerful dragon adversaries that test coordination and timing. Combat is accessible but tactical, encouraging players to use elemental strengths strategically while upgrading abilities through collected resources and rescued dragons. The story gradually reveals Scribbler's forgotten connection to dragons and the rising threat facing the island.
Battle fearsome foes. With help from old friends Hiccup, Toothless, and the Dragon Riders. In the new
Bakaroo is a vibrant action-adventure inspired by Japanese folklore that blends lighthearted storytelling with exploration-focused level design, following a young Tanuki hero named Bakaroo, who sets out to stop a mischievous festival spirit from spreading chaos across a stylized version of Japan. While presented primarily as a 3D action platformer, the game carries strong Zelda-like sensibilities in its structure, emphasizing self-contained stages filled with environmental puzzles, hidden collectibles, combat arenas, and themed boss encounters that revolve around learning patterns and mastering newly acquired abilities. As Bakaroo travels through festival-inspired regions representing different parts of the country, each infused with mythological creatures, exaggerated cultural motifs, and playful reinterpretations of historical settings, players gradually unlock transformation powers and special techniques that expand both combat and traversal options, reinforcing a steady sense of growth and empowerment. Combat is fast, accessible, and ability-driven, combining staff attacks, dodges, and magical techniques tied to folklore-inspired forms, while larger boss encounters test timing, observation, and adaptability rather than raw difficulty. The narrative leans into humor and charm, presenting its adventure as a whimsical yet heroic journey rooted in themes of courage, cultural celebration, and restoring harmony. Cadence of Hyrule. Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda and Crypt of the Necrodancer, merge rhythm-based gameplay with action-adventure structure, transforming the traditional Zelda-like formula into a music-driven combat experience where every movement, attack, and dodge must be performed in time with the beat. Crypt of the Necrodancer introduces the core concept, placing players in procedurally generated dungeons where enemies move according to musical patterns, forcing strategic positioning and quick thinking, synchronized perfectly with the soundtrack, blending roguelike progression with dungeon crawling fundamentals. Cadence of Hyrule builds upon that foundation by integrating the world, characters, and overworld exploration style associated with The Legend of Zelda, allowing players to control characters like Link, Zelda, or Cadence as they traverse a reimagined Hyrule composed of rhythm-based overworld screens and handcrafted dungeon areas. Instead of traditional freeform combat, encounters become musical puzzles where understanding enemy patterns, weapon types, and tempo variations is crucial to survival. Weapons, items, and classic Zelda tools, such as bombs and hookshots, are adapted into beat-matching mechanics, creating a unique hybrid where dungeon exploration, item progression, and boss battles still mirror Zelda's structure but are entirely dictated by rhythm timing. The Swords of Ditto is a colorful action RPG that reinterprets the classic Zelda-style adventure through a roguelite structure, centering on an endless cycle of heroes who rise to defeat the dark sorceress Mormo in a charming yet dangerous fantasy world. Presented from a top-down perspective reminiscent of early entries in The Legend of Zelda, the game blends overworld exploration, dungeon crawling, puzzle solving, and real-time combat into a loop defined by generational succession, where each fallen hero is replaced by a new Sword of Ditto who inherits the mission to save the land. The overworld is filled with whimsical towns, hidden caves, toy-like environments, and quirky NPCs, masking a surprisingly structured progression system in which players gather powerful stickers and magical toys that function similarly to Zelda-style tools, unlocking new paths and offering strategic combat advantages. Dungeons are procedurally arranged, yet designed around recognizable puzzle mechanics, environmental hazards, and boss encounters that test mastery of collected abilities, while a looming time limit before Mormo's resurrection adds urgency and tension to exploration decisions. Combat is fast and accessible, encouraging dodging, item usage, and creative combinations of abilities rather than heavy stat grinding, and cooperative play further enhances the adventure dynamic. Nobody Saves the World is a fast-paced, top-down action RPG that reimagines the Zelda-like dungeon-crawling formula through a wildly creative character transformation system, following an unassuming nobody who discovers a magical wand that allows them to shapeshift into dozens of distinct forms, each with unique abilities and playstyles. Drawing structural inspiration from classic entries such as The Legend of Zelda, the game features an interconnected overworld filled with side quests, hidden secrets, and progressively challenging dungeons that revolve around combat encounters, environmental hazards, and boss battles. However, instead of acquiring traditional tools like bombs or hookshots, progression is driven by unlocking new forms, ranging from a rat and ranger to a robot and dragon, each designed with specific combat skills and passive traits that can be mixed and matched to create custom builds. Dungeons are gated by difficulty modifiers and enemy mechanics that encourage experimentation, pushing players to adapt their form combinations strategically, rather than relying on a single playstyle. Combat is ability-focused and combo-driven, emphasizing status effects, mana management, and synergy between powers, while the lighthearted narrative embraces absurd humor as the nobody gradually becomes the world's unlikely savior. With its bright art style, flexible build system, and dungeon-centric structure,
the ultra-powerful magician Nostramagus has gone missing. You're trying to locate Nostramagus to get his help, but in the meantime, you find his wand, which lets you transform into a bunch of different forms.
That's right.
Oceanhorn 2. Knights of the Lost Realm is a 3D action-adventure RPG that fully embraces the structure and spirit of modern Zelda-style design, placing players in the role of a young knight in training who embarks on a sweeping journey to prevent a dark warlock and his forces from plunging the world of Gaia into chaos. Serving as a prequel to the original Oceanhorn, the game expands into a broad, interconnected overworld filled with diverse regions, lush plains, ancient forests, desert ruins, icy mountains, and bustling towns, encouraging exploration, side quests, hidden secrets, and environmental puzzle solving in a way strongly reminiscent of The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and later 3D entries in the series. Players travel alongside 2 AI companions who assist in combat and puzzle scenarios, adding light party-based mechanics to the traditional solo hero format while still keeping the focus on dungeon progression and tool-based problem solving. Throughout the adventure, new items such as bombs, magical abilities, and ranged weapons unlock previously inaccessible paths, reinforcing the satisfying loop of exploration and backtracking that defines Zelda-like design. Dungeons form the backbone of progression, each built around environmental mechanics, switch-based puzzles, and boss encounters that require pattern recognition and strategic use of newly gained abilities. Death's Door is an isometric action-adventure that blends tight, skill-based combat with puzzle-focused dungeon design, placing players in the role of a small crow who works as a soul-reaping agent in a bureaucratic afterlife where death is treated like office work. When a stolen soul throws the balance of life and death into chaos, the crow ventures beyond the safety of the Reaper headquarters into a decaying fantasy world where ancient beings cling to immortality, drawing strong, structural inspiration from classic entries such as The Legend of Zelda, while layering in a darker, melancholic tone. The game revolves around interconnected regions that gradually open up as players acquire new magical abilities, such as fire, bombs, and ranged attacks, that double as both combat tools and environmental puzzle solutions, reinforcing a steady sense of progression and backtracking. Dungeons are tightly crafted and mechanically focused, filled with switch-based puzzles, enemy gauntlets, and clever traversal challenges that culminate in demanding boss fights requiring mastery of dodge timing, attack patterns, and spatial awareness rather than brute force leveling. Combat is deliberate and punishing but fair, emphasizing stamina management, positioning, and reading enemy tells, creating encounters that feel methodical and rewarding. The narrative unfolds subtly through environmental storytelling and eccentric NPCs, exploring themes of mortality, stagnation, and acceptance.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney from Norsefell. I'm excited to show you Tribes of Midgard is a co-op survival.
Tribes of Midgard is a cooperative action RPG that blends Norse mythology with survival mechanics and base defense, placing players in the role of Einherjar, fallen Viking warriors chosen to protect the seed of Yggdrasil from the forces of Ragnarok. While it differs from traditional Zelda-style structure, it still echoes aspects of the formulas seen in classics like The Legend of Zelda through its top-down perspective, dungeon-like zones, boss encounters, and emphasis on exploration combined with real-time combat. Players venture out from a central village into procedurally generated wilderness, filled with biomes such as icy tundras, volcanic fields, and shadowy forests, gathering resources, crafting weapons and armor, completing quests, and uncovering layers that function similarly to compact dungeons. The core gameplay loop revolves around preparing defenses during the day and protecting the village from increasingly dangerous enemy raids at night, creating a rhythm between exploration and urgent combat scenarios. As the adventure progresses, players work toward confronting towering Jotnar, massive mythological giants that serve as world-threatening boss encounters, requiring teamwork, strategy, and upgraded gear. Combat is fast and ability-driven, with multiple character classes offering unique skills, encouraging cooperative synergy and role specialization.
We've saved the best and the biggest for last.
Ultra Age is a fast-paced, third-person action game set in a distant, post-apocalyptic future where humanity teeters on the brink of extinction, following a young warrior named Age who is sent on a critical mission to secure humanity's survival on a ravaged Earth. Although it leans more heavily into character action combat than traditional dungeon exploration, the game still carries echoes of Zelda-like progression in the way new weapons and abilities gradually unlock access to tougher encounters and layered-level challenges, similar in structural philosophy to growth systems seen in The Legend of Zelda. The core gameplay revolves around a dynamic sword-switching mechanic, allowing players to instantly swap between multiple blade types, each designed with specific strengths, combo patterns, elemental properties, and situational advantages against different enemy types. Levels are structured as contained combat arenas and traversal-focused zones rather than a seamless overworld, emphasizing reflex-driven battles against waves of mutated creatures and powerful bosses that demand precision dodging, aerial juggling, and careful resource management. As Age progresses, he upgrades his arsenal, enhances abilities, and gains support from a small floating companion that provides ranged assistance and strategic depth. The narrative centers on survival, sacrifice, and uncovering the truth behind humanity's collapse, blending science fiction themes with high-speed action set pieces. Aliisha, the Oblivion of Twin Goddesses, is a story-driven action-adventure that blends light combat with heavy environmental puzzle solving, following twin sisters Aisha and Lisha as they explore ancient ruins tied to the forgotten legends of two divine goddesses. While it leans more into cooperative puzzle design than traditional combat-focused dungeon crawling, the game shares structural DNA with classic Zelda-style adventures such as The Legend of Zelda, through its emphasis on exploring mysterious temples, unlocking sealed pathways, and gradually unraveling mythic lore. Players control both sisters, either solo by switching between them or cooperatively, using their distinct abilities to manipulate mechanisms, activate ancient devices, decipher symbols, and overcome environmental hazards that require coordination and timing. The world design centers around interconnected ruins, sacred chambers, and hidden corridors rather than a sprawling overworld, placing strong focus on layered puzzle rooms that function much like compact Zelda dungeons built around a central mechanic. Combat sequences exist but are secondary to the cerebral challenges, often serving as brief obstacles between exploration segments rather than the primary gameplay driver. The narrative unfolds through environmental storytelling and voiced character interactions, exploring themes of sisterhood, faith, memory, and the lingering influence of ancient deities whose conflict shaped the world. Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story, is a cozy, crafting-focused RPG set in the whimsical world of Bandle City from the League of Legends universe, following a shy Yordle who leaves their isolated island home to reconnect fragmented portals and restore harmony to their scattered community. Unlike combat-heavy Zelda-inspired adventures such as The Legend of Zelda, Bandle Tale leans far more into life sim systems, resource gathering, crafting chains, farming, cooking, and festival organization, though it still carries a light sense of exploration and progression through unlocking new regions and abilities. The world is divided into colorful biomes connected by magical, knitting-based portal mechanics, with players completing quests for fellow Yordles, rebuilding infrastructure, and gradually expanding their crafting expertise through skill trees tied to specific professions. Instead of dungeon crawling and boss battles, progression revolves around collecting materials, managing inventory efficiently, preparing elaborate event gatherings, and solving light environmental tasks that require the right crafted tools. The narrative emphasizes community, friendship, and rebuilding broken connections rather than epic heroism, creating a relaxed, heartwarming atmosphere. While it diverges significantly from traditional Zelda-like combat and dungeon design, Bandle Tale retains a sense of structured exploration and gradual world restoration that echoes the broader adventure framework.
Dream. But then came a great king, one who would change this world forever.
Ni no Kuni 2. Revenant Kingdom is a vibrant action RPG that follows the young deposed king, Evan Pettywhisker Tildrum, as he sets out to build a new kingdom after being betrayed and exiled from his castle, blending real-time combat, large-scale exploration, and kingdom management into a sweeping fantasy adventure. While it leans more heavily into RPG systems than a traditional Zelda title, it shares structural similarities with games like The Legend of Zelda through its emphasis on traversing a colorful overworld, venturing into themed dungeons, solving light environmental puzzles, and facing dramatic boss encounters that gate story progression. Players explore diverse regions, ranging from rolling plains and enchanted forests to desert cities and skybound kingdoms, recruiting citizens with unique skills who help expand and develop Evan's new realm through a surprisingly deep kingdom-building system that ties directly into gameplay upgrades. Combat unfolds in real time with party-based mechanics, allowing players to switch between characters while using melee attacks, spells, and summoned elemental creatures called Higgledies to exploit enemy weaknesses and maintain fluid momentum in battle. Dungeons serve as structured progression hubs filled with enemy gauntlets, treasure chests, and cinematic boss fights that emphasize movement and tactical positioning rather than turn-based strategy, marking a departure from the first game's combat style. Tunic is an isometric action-adventure that deliberately channels the mystery, structure, and sense of discovery found in early entries of The Legend of Zelda, placing players in the role of a small fox hero who awakens on a ruined island filled with ancient machinery, crumbling temples, and cryptic symbols written in an indecipherable language. At its core, Tunic is about exploration and knowledge as much as combat, encouraging players to wander freely through an interconnected world that gradually loops back on itself as new abilities, such as a shield, magic orb, bombs, and traversal upgrades, unlock shortcuts and previously sealed paths. Dungeons are tightly constructed and mechanically layered, blending environmental puzzles, hidden passages, and enemy encounters that demand careful stamina management, precise dodging, and pattern recognition in challenging boss fights. What truly distinguishes Tunic is its in-game instruction manual system, where collectible pages scattered across the world slowly reveal gameplay mechanics, hidden secrets, and even late-game revelations, turning the act of learning the rules into part of the puzzle itself. Combat is deliberate and punishing, drawing subtle influence from modern action design while still rooted in Zelda-like structure, rewarding patience and mastery over brute force. The narrative unfolds almost entirely through atmosphere and implication, exploring themes of forgotten civilizations, cyclical power, and the consequences of blind devotion.
Interesting. According to the translation, it seems the inhabitants of this planet called themselves Neroans.
Star Trek Prodigy Supernova is a story-driven action-adventure set within the animated universe of Star Trek Prodigy, following Dal-Rel and Gwyndala as they respond to a mysterious distress signal that leads them into an unfolding crisis involving a dying star and a dangerous alien force. While grounded in the sci-fi traditions of Star Trek rather than high fantasy, the game mirrors aspects of classic Zelda-style design, such as that seen in The Legend of Zelda, through its structured exploration, environmental puzzle solving, and progression gated by new tools and abilities. Players alternate between Dal and Gwyn, either solo or in local co-op, using each character's distinct skills to solve switch-based puzzles, navigate hazardous alien facilities, and unlock sealed pathways inside research stations, underground complexes, and strange planetary environments. Combat plays a lighter but consistent role, featuring ranged phaser battles and encounters against robotic enemies and hostile creatures, emphasizing movement and coordination rather than deep RPG systems. The adventure unfolds across interconnected mission areas that function similarly to compact dungeons, blending traversal challenges, teamwork mechanics, and boss-style confrontations into a steady narrative progression. The story highlights themes central to Star Trek: cooperation, bravery, and responsibility, while maintaining accessibility for younger audiences.